You hear people talk about what's your total testosterone versus what's your free testosterone. The free testosterone is the amount in the blood that can actually cause muscle gains and do all the good stuff. The total testosterone is how much is in the blood. So you want to have enough free testosterone so that you can do stuff. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, be it bodybuilding or non-bodybuilding, we have you covered. On the channel right now, all new episodes of the After Hours podcast. Yesterday, sort of a throwback. You know, a lot of you have been asking about just having the whack pack. Well, we had our full panel, but it seemed to be a little bit more of a throwback feel, Dave. I don't know if you agreed. It was kind of a lot of different things going on in one episode. We had your sister on and come and give psychic readings earlier on in the show, and then the show evolved to basically a big debate about religion, about the afterlife, and just about everything in between.
Yeah, I violated everything I always said. My father warned me. He said, never talk religion. And we violated. But it was, you know what? People liked it. I had a lot of people contact me, actually, and say that they really liked the show. So I thought it was good. You know, a lot of people like my sister because she's very, she's likable, and whether you believe or not, it doesn't really matter. I thought it was a good show, and I was crying while she was reading people, and I had fun during the debate, and then at the end, the show just kept going on, and people didn't want it to end. People were sending us tips at the end because they wanted us to do another hour. If I have to go see my son play basketball, I would have kept going probably. But it was a fun show. Yeah. I like doing those type of shows.
It's a lot of fun. So again, check that out. And of course, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio with Dave and Chris Aceto. And then also Dave just did a video, a full scale video on insulin usage, maximum nutrient absorption, optimal usage of insulin for muscle growth and fat loss. That is live right now on the channel. So again, check it out at the RxMuscle YouTube channel. We go to the questions. The first two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Can you please give me recommended dosage and cycle length for women who do bodybuilding?
Sure. By the way, I just wanted to point out I have an old school bodybuilding clothing shirt on that looks like the Def Leppard, and I always get compliments on the shirt. But I wanted to just give a real thank you out to Scott, because Scott sent me like 15 new T-shirts, like designs from old school bodybuilding clothing.
OSBBC.com.
Yeah, he's got some great clothes, and he's always coming out with new designs. I mean, I know a lot of people see him. People think, you know what, he liked this. I thought he was going to get upset. People come up to me in the gym. They think I own the company because I'm always wearing the shirt. Because I love the designs, and they're very comfortable. They're thin T-shirts. They fit nice. They don't feel bulky, and they're not thick, and they breathe well. So Scott was like, I'm glad that people think you. That means that means you're wearing the shirts. I said, I do. And so whatever he sends me, I wear them all the time. So he's got some really nice, cool designs. Check it out at OSBBC.com. Now, the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which is where we're getting these questions from, is an app that's online. You can download it at iTunes or Android store. $29 a month. You get me as your coach in your back pocket, essentially. All my writings I've ever done, all my videos I've ever done, all in one place. We do a workout every single week. We put up a workout on the site. You can download and use it. I also do I answer everyone's questions in an open forum. So everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers. Very good learning experience. I do that every week, all throughout the week. And then I do a Q&A video. So it's like an extra version of Ask Dave just for the app members. So once again, if you're serious about learning about how to be a great coach, how to be understanding diet and supplements and PEDs, this is an invaluable tool because it will force you to keep learning new stuff, because I'm always learning new stuff myself and always putting new information out there. So check it out. The question is, cycles for women. If you know anything about me, I'm very conservative with women because I believe that women should remain looking like women. Now, there are women out there that don't care, and the masculinizing side effects don't affect them for whatever reason. They don't care about them. But I treat every woman as if, it was my sister or someone I care, my daughter, my wife. I don't want to see anyone, ruin themselves. So really, cycles for women should really be limited. If you don't want any side effects, probably Anavar would be the only drug that you really want to use. And you can vary it from 10 to 20 to 30 milligrams a day. And it doesn't seem to offer any side effects that I can see. People who tend to get side effects from Anavar are not using Anavar. There's a lot of fake Anavar out there. There's and what they typically fake the Anavar with, the underground labs, Dianabol. So you think you're taking Anavar, you're actually using a very androgenizing steroid, which will cause a lot of side effects. So you definitely want to test your gear with the Roy test kits that I sell to make sure that you're using the right thing, especially if you're a woman. Now, for the women who might want to take it up a notch or two to the next level, it seems like Winstrol can be taken in small dosages and not really, elicit too many side effects as well. Usually 10 milligrams per day orally is safe. I like the oral versions better because they don't stay in your body as long. Whereas if you take like an injectable, like a lot of people like Primobolan, and Primobolan and Winstrol are pretty much, similar in terms of effect and how long or how many side effects they cause. The problem with Primobolan is it's Primobolan and xanthate. So it's an injectable that lasts a long time in your body, so it's always there. So, if a woman takes a Winstrol tab, it might hit its peak after, a couple hours and then stay high and then start dropping down. So there maybe half the day they're exposed to a higher level of it. Whereas with Primobolan, it reaches its peak and it stays there all the time. So that sometimes people have a little bit more side effects women-wise with Primobolan. Primobolan usually 50 milligrams per week, like 25 milligrams twice a week is usually pretty safe for women. But there's also a lot of fake Primobolan out there. And unfortunately, they fake Primobolan with test propionate, which is not a good drug. So Anavar, Winstrol, a little Winstrol, maybe a little Primo. I wouldn't go more than that. If I'm a woman, I wouldn't want to use more than that. And I see women, I had a person ask me today about this girl at the gym. She was a wellness competitor, and she just got off a cycle of Trenbolone and Masteron. And I'm like, what? Why in the world would a girl be taking Trenbolone? I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's the most masculinizing of all the drugs because it's really high in androgen. So women have to be very, very careful with what they take. Obviously, like growth hormone is pretty safe because it doesn't have any androgenizing effects. It's a protein hormone. Obviously, you don't want to take too much because it can affect facial structure. Usually 1 to 1.5 IUs is pretty good for women. And, the fat burners like clenbuterol and T3 are safe because they don't have any androgenizing side effects. Also, sometimes women, we have them use, last 6 to 8 weeks before a show, maybe some Nolvadex, which is an estrogen receptor blocker. And you can take 10 milligrams twice a day of that. And that's good because it'll harden women up. A lot of women think, I'll just take an Astrozole, which is a Arimidex. And for women, that doesn't work because, the aromatase inhibitors block the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. Women don't produce their estrogen from testosterone. They produce their estrogen from where? From the ovaries directly. So you have to block receptors in women. And that's why women will use Nolvadex, and that works really well for them as well. So that's kind of like for most of the girls, Anavar, maybe a little GH if they can afford it, clenbuterol T3 to burn fat, and maybe an estrogen blocker the last, 6 to 8 weeks. That's about as much as I would recommend doing and feel safe doing on women. And that's still enough. That's a lot. That's more than a natural athlete would experience. I think a lot of women have to understand that you have to be patient. You're not going to put 20 pounds of muscle on, in 6 weeks doing this cycle. But if you consistently keep improving your physique over time and you do it the right way, and when I say the right way with women, it means without masculinizing yourself, in the long run, you're going to have a much longer career and you're going to have a much more successful career because at the end of the day, when you're being judged, okay, it's only natural to pick the prettier girl if all other things are equal. So don't ruin your good looks, because that definitely helps on that stage.
Second question, again, these questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. So another question for female bodybuilders, this one relating to proviron. Do you see any benefit in proviron, and what compounds do you feel are better? Does proviron have a place when it comes to female bodybuilders or not?
You know, back in the 90s, we thought that proviron was an estrogen receptor blocker because Bill Phillips told us it was, because Bill Phillips wrote the Anabolic Reference Guide, and that was like the book that was the Bible, at least for me, you know. See, I never really liked Dan Duchesne's Underground Steroid Handbook, and it probably was good for its time, but when Bill came out with the Anabolic Reference Guide, it took the science of anabolic steroids to the next level. So I wasn't around when the steroid handbook came out, Dan Duchesne's. I was kind of hitting the scene when Bill Phillips was releasing the Anabolic Reference Guide. So I read that thing 6,000 times. And in there, it said that proviron blocked estrogen receptors, but that's not the case. We found out later that it's a non-anabolic steroid. So it doesn't have any anabolic effects. It does not build muscle whatsoever. It's a pure androgen that doesn't aromatize. And what it does, it doesn't even have anabolic or androgenic effects really in the body. What it really does more than anything is it supposedly displaces testosterone from the sex hormone binding globulins. And what the sex hormone binding globulins in the bloodstream do is they grab up any kind of anabolics and it deactivates them. So when you hear people talk about what's your total testosterone versus what's your free testosterone, the free testosterone is the amount in the blood that can actually cause muscle gains and do all the good stuff. The total testosterone is how much is in the blood. So you want to have enough free testosterone so that you can do stuff. So theoretically, what inactivates testosterone is the sex hormone binding globulins, because it binds it up. Supposedly, proviron kind of knocks the anabolics off of the binding proteins and frees it up. I haven't seen on blood work it illustrate that at all. And to be honest with you, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when you take more and more, as your total testosterone increases, okay, the free testosterone that you're reading on the free testosterone usually goes up too, but it's not that relevant anymore. So because if your total testosterone is 5,000, okay, and it should be no higher than 850, and your free testosterone is actually higher when you have 850, okay, you're not growing better on 850. You're growing better on 5,000, okay, because there's a pharmacological effect going on. So you can't compare the free testosterone from someone who has a total testosterone of 5,000 to the free testosterone of someone who has a total testosterone of 850. They're not, you can't equate the two. They're not equal to each other. The way I interpret it is that the free testosterone is more of a percentage of the total testosterone that's free. So the higher your total testosterone, you might not need as high a free testosterone because the percentage is so much bigger that you're getting a much higher amount of free anabolic that's actually doing something. I just don't see any results from taking proviron. Never have, never, and I don't think anyone really does. I think they just take it by convention because it's been around so long and people have used it for so long, but I don't believe it does anything. As a matter of fact, I think it can compete for receptor sites on the androgen receptors. And since we know proviron has no muscle building, properties, I think it could actually sabotage muscle gain. So I never used it. I always, stopped. Once I found out what it did, I just never incorporated it anymore into my plan. Most people use halotestin. Most men use halotestin in the last 2 weeks anyway before a show, and it's much more potent.
Let's go to our Facebook and Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Facebook, just go to the search bar, type in RxMuscle. On Instagram, official_RxMuscle. Socrates Lopez, thanks for putting out such great content. Is there any relation to having better sleep because of having taken a cheat meal before bed? I've tried this once a week for the past 4 weeks, and it's worked every single time.
Carbs make it easy to sleep. There's no doubt about that. That's for sure. And, anyone who's ever eaten a big meal and you go sit on the couch, you want to fall asleep right after that. Carbs, as Bleckman would say, carbs cause tryptophan, increases tryptophan, which causes serotonin, release. So you feel good when you eat carbs and you feel tired when you eat carbs, So you definitely get a better night's sleep after eating a big meal. Matter of fact, you know, I'm not dieting now by any means, but a lot of times, like I'll eat dinner and then, you know, before bed, I'm like, I don't know if I want to eat another meal. It's, you know, it's already like midnight. I'm going to sleep in a half hour, and I'll have like 2 Quest cookies, and the Quest cookies, they're like 15 grams of protein a piece. So I eat 2 of them, so you get the 30 grams of protein, but they have like, there's very few net carbs in them. And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night hungry because my blood sugar is a little low, you know, and other times I'll eat like maybe I'll have leftover rice and like ground turkey or something like that I ate, or some of Carlo's chicken by the pound. And I'll be like, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of feel like eating a meal. And I'll eat a little meal while I'm watching TV, you know, right before bed. And then I'll go lay down, and man, I fall asleep so easily, and I never wake up in the middle of the night. Matter of fact, I don't even pee as much because, you know, the carbs hold water too. So if you're eating a very low carb meal before bed, a lot of times you'll be up peeing more frequently because you're not going to hold all the fluid that you drank, you know, with that meal. So there's absolutely 100% truth to what you said.
Let's go to Pete Pingle. Of these 3 that never turned pro, Matt Mendenhall, Edgar Fletcher, and Rory Leidlelmeyer, who do you think would have made the best pro?
Mendenhall. I think Mendenhall had every body part. He had calves, he had legs, he had back, he had, you know, he had good abs, big arms, chest. I mean, he had it all. He just never really dialed in the conditioning the way he should have. And I don't know if he was distracted or what was going on with his life. I know he was dating Rachel McLeish for a while. And, you know, Bob Grushkin was notorious. He used to say that, oh, he's too distracted. You know, but whatever the case may be, I think he had the most potential. I think Edgar Fletcher was kind of like a little bit of a head case, and he liked to cheat on his diet. But I think that Mendenhall had a better physique, even though Edgar had that really small, waspy looking waist, but he had very high lats. Mendenhall's lats went right down to his, you know, right down to his hips. I think he would have been a really good pro.
Let's go to Mike Molinaro. I have lingering shoulder pain from a bone spur. I've tried injecting BPC-157 as close as I can to the AC joint. Can I do the same with HGH? Will it make a difference, or just keep injecting sub-Q into my belly?
Yeah, first of all, I don't like injecting anything into the belly, okay? Because as a lot of people will realize, it leaves marks. And your abdominals are something that you display. You know, you take your shirt off, the first thing you see is abs, right? So I don't believe in injecting anything. If you're going to do the GH, you can just pop it right in your shoulder with an insulin pen. You know, there's no fat on your shoulder. You can go right into the muscle if you want. That's the easiest thing to do it. Or if you're going to inject it subcutaneous, do it around your legs. Just lift up the skin of your legs and put it under there, because that's a lot easier. Like I said, you don't want marks on your abdominals. Now, the bone spur that you have, that you're not going to take any healing peptides or GH and make that thing go away. You know, there's 2 reasons you have a bone spur, or a bony, you know, impingement, they call it. One is genetics. Okay, I had them in both shoulders. Genetically, I just had a bony acromial process, and it used to pinch on my infraspinatus and bicep tendon in my shoulder. And every time I would bench, I feel like it was catching. And if you don't do anything about that, a lot of times you get a tear in the long head of the bicep. So I went and I had arthroscopies done, or arthroscopic surgeries done, where they kind of did a debridement. That's mean they shaved down that little bony ridge, and it lets the tendons run freely. Unfortunately, when they went in there and did that, they cleaned up the torn cartilage. And at the time in the 90s, they weren't really fixing cartilage. They were just kind of cutting it off. And so that probably led eventually down the road to me having arthritis and then needing shoulder replacements. But they can go in there now and they could just shave that little, or debride that little bony acromial process. Now, if you have a bone spur is actually, if you think about it from a simplistic standpoint, it's almost like a callus in there. So something's rubbing, and what your body is doing, it's building up like calcification to protect the area. The problem is that it does the same thing as the bony acromial process. It can impinge on those tendons of the infraspinatus, which is your rotator cuff, and the bicep tendon, the long head of the bicep that goes up in here. So a lot of times that also can cause problems, and they can go in there and shave that down with an arthroscopic surgery as well. The problem is with that is that sometimes it comes back, if you don't fix what the problem is. Usually when they do these surgeries now, they do what's called the biceps tenodesis, and they actually detach the long head of the bicep and they screw it into the humerus bone, which is the upper arm bone, which is actually, they say, a better place for it to be located. And then it's not up in that little notch where it's getting rubbed on. So, and that a lot of times solves the problem. So if you go in for an arthroscopy where they're going to actually shave down, whether it be a bone spur or a acromial process, a lot of times I would recommend, asking the surgeon about a bicep tenodesis, because the recovery is pretty much the same. Well, it's a little longer, the recovery, but it'll fix the problem down the road.
Let's go to Michael Moore. What would cause one of your calves to lose half of its strength and about 3/8 inch, like atrophy set in?
Yeah, that's unfortunately, a lot of times that's due to some kind of an impingement in the spine. Like, one of the nerves is being pinched off and it's not innervating, the calf muscle. And the fact that you're losing only a portion of it would indicate it's one specific nerve that's doing it, because it's not one nerve does the whole calf. It's like half the calf is one nerve, and then the other half is another nerve. And that's what you're experiencing is, I forget that I used to know the names of all the nerves, like the long perineal nerve or something like that. Whatever, I might be right. Whichever one it is, it's getting pinched off, and usually it's in your back somewhere. It doesn't usually happen in the middle of the leg anywhere, unless you had like a knee injury, but it could definitely be from your spine. And so you might need an adjustment. You might want to get your spine x-rayed to see if there's any bulging discs that are pushing on that nerve. It's a possibility. That's what it sounds like to me, especially if it's only in one calf. That's what it usually is from.
Question relating to species nutrition is from Pipes. What was the first species nutrition product available for purchase? And to this point, which species nutrition product are you most proud of?
The first one I created my two fat burners together. It was Lipolyze and Somalyze. And, I always had, I had worked for a company that was owned by a guy by the name of Pete Scalise, who owned another company many, many years later called Gear. So you probably remember that. But Pete came out with this company in '96, and it was called Huge Nutrition, and he wanted me to be the face of it. And they put me on all the packaging and everything like that. And I was with them for about a year and a half. It was fun until unfortunately they went out of business. But I helped them formulate all the products. And one of the products we had was a melatonin-based, sleep aid. And because I was always a big advocate of melatonin, not just for sleep, but also for the antioxidant properties. And nowadays we know it does a lot, even more than that. So when I set out to do my fat burners, I wanted to make a nighttime fat burner that also would help you sleep better. Obviously, better sleep, you're going to burn fat better. It reduces cortisol levels. And I was a big advocate. If you remember, there was a product by AST Research that Bill Phillips used to sell. Paul D'Elia owned that company. It was a GABA-based supplement. It was like a scoop. It looked like GHB. It was like a scoop, and you would scoop 2 grams of GABA, and it helped release GH at night, and it definitely relaxed you, because stimulating GABA receptors in the brain is similar to what Ativan and Valium and Xanax do. So I said, I want to combine the GABA and the melatonin. I think the GABA would help you fall asleep, because I know a lot of bodybuilders have trouble falling asleep, especially if they're on drugs like Trenbolone. And then the melatonin would keep you in a deeper sense of sleep. And then I'll put some other non-stimulant based fat burners in there as well to help with burning fat while you sleep. And it's just, to this day, it's a very, very good selling product. That was the first one I did with Lipolyze. At the time Lipolyze first came out, I made it. It was based on a product known as usnic acid. And usnic acid was an uncoupling agent. It kind of worked similar to the way DNP did. It was legal at the time, and it worked amazing. The stuff wasted energy. You would get hot on the stuff, and it was a controversial supplement, and some people were suing people over it. And eventually, the FDA, pulled the plug on it, so we had to take it off the market. But I remember Flex Lewis, who was kind of early in his career. He loved the product. I think he bought like cases from me, like when we had to stop making it. He really liked that product. And those were the first 2 products. And because I figured I wanted to make pills. And then right after that, I made a protein product, because someone approached me and said, "Hey, I heard you want to make a protein product," and I didn't even know where to get started, to be honest with you. And they made exactly what I wanted, because I was, very lactose intolerant. I said it has to be an isolate, but it has to, all the isolates at the time tasted terrible. I said, you have to make this thing taste good. And we got the best flavoring guy, and the rest is history. This flavoring guy was this guy Pete Miller was working with EAS when Bill Phillips was doing his stuff, and Bill Phillips' products all tasted great, and he made me a great whey isolate, and that became Isolyze. And that I'm probably the most proud of that product, because it's, even to this day, we have the best flavors. We're the only company that has 28 grams of protein per 33 gram serving size. No one has extracted that much protein. And because no one wants to spend the money that we do on the protein. So I think that's probably the highest quality whey isolate on the market, and so I'm kind of proud of that. I'm also really proud of the new Protolyze protein pudding that's coming out. We kind of put it on hold for about 6 or 8 months because I was reformulating it with probiotics, because probiotics is the new thing. I was waiting for something to come out with people. I don't just come out with products just for the sake of it. And I knew I wanted to make a probiotic-based supplement, and they finally have like really good, heat-sensitive, probiotics that don't have to be refrigerated. So we mixed it into the protein pudding formula, and it's delicious. It's a great snack. I have so many women that are yelling at me, when are you going to come out with it again? Because they used to eat it at night, instead of eating, junk food. And that's a very, very high-end product. It was very hard to put together, make it taste right, have the right mouthfeel, yet it has almost basically like 1 gram of carbs or something like that. And it's got 30 grams of protein per serving. So it's absolutely delicious. So those two products are probably my favorite. Unfortunately, in the world of supplements, as everyone who has a company knows, protein supplements are very expensive to make, and they're the lowest profit margins, but I don't care, because I make them for myself. They're great. I mean, they're truly, truly high-end products.
You are a big proponent, obviously, of the 6 to 8 reps for muscle growth. This question is from BA85. Muz, for chest or any body part for that fact, if your form is correct, tempo spot on, the amount of sets is low, and you're working in that sweet spot of 6 to 8, but no growth, do you think of upping the reps to say 10 plus will assist in growth? Maybe
I actually do. Yeah, I actually do 4 to 8 reps. I think is the growth. Is matter like 4 to 6 reps is really the growth zone, I think, because you can push some pretty heavy weight and get 4 reps out that are good for them, especially if you have a training partner giving you a little help. And I just found that I grew the best in that. So if I'm going to bench press, I'll obviously start. Let's say I was doing 405 on the bench. I would do 135. I'd do 225. For maybe 6 to 8 reps just to warm up. Then I go to 315. I go to 405. And if when I first started doing 405, I was only getting 1 or 2. But you have to do that, to be able to get to that next level. So I might do 2 reps with 405, but then I'll do a drop set, and I'll take 2 plates off each side, and I'll do 225 for another 4. So I'm still getting 6 reps out, but the first 2 were so heavy that's really what's tearing down those fibers and making me grow. And the key is to keep pushing yourself. It's very scary to lift weight that you're not capable of doing for a lot of reps. I'm in the gym now, and I didn't bench press free weights for 18 years because I had the shoulder problem. So now it took me a long time to build up. Now I could do like 185, and I'm probably never going to push myself past that, because I don't need to set any records, and I don't need to wear down my shoulders any faster. But when I do it, I have a guy in the gym who spots me. I'll ask one of the trainer guys there. I'll say, look, just get me through 3 or 4, get me through 4 reps. I probably do the first 2 myself, and then I'm going to probably need a little help. And just by him giving me just a little bit of help and me pushing through that zone, eventually I'm going to get 4. Eventually I'll get 6 probably reps, and that'll probably be the highest I go. But that's how you get through it. If you're not constantly working through those trouble zones and you do the same exact weight for the same amount of reps every single workout, you're not going to grow. You have to push past those plateaus, and it's not fun and it's scary. But if you have a good spotter, you can do it.
I know you all didn't hear that. I just had the loudest sneeze of all time.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We had a lot of good questions here. So this question is about, and this is a topic that, as far as coaching and the different types of clients that you've had, and trying to maximize what you have with the mold of clay that you're working with. Have you ever had someone that did not appear to have good, quote unquote, good bodybuilding genetics at first, but over time developed a great physique or had bad genetics obvious from the start?
I've had multiple people like that have amazed me, that had what I thought was the worst genetics of all time, and that they would never, and especially I've had clients that are older who started with me. I'm like, they're never going to ever look really good. If I can just get them in shape, that'll be a monumental thing. And I've had them turn pro. I've had them win pro shows, in the masters category, of course. But it's amazing how some people, you don't know what their true potential is if they're just starting, and that's the key. When I went and posed for Bob Grushkin back in 1991, I had decided I had just left medical school. I think it was 92. I had left medical school, took a year off, and I wanted to become a bodybuilder. I was bodybuilding, but I wanted to give it 100%. And I hadn't really started I hadn't really done any major cycles or anything like that yet. So I go, and my friend Doug takes me to Bob's house, and I'm posing for Bob. And, I tell Bob my whole story and everything like that. And Bob's like, well, I said, do you think I could ever win my class at a national level show? He's like, well, maybe you should go back to medical school. So he's like, but he goes, prove me wrong. He goes, no one's proved me wrong yet, but prove me wrong. And I guess it was 3 years later, Bob Bonham used to have something called Champions Day at the Strong and Shapely Gym in New Jersey. He'd invite anyone who placed top 5 at a national show. And back then, remember, it was only bodybuilding. There wasn't a lot of people doing it. So if you got invited, you were good. And I had won my class at the Junior Nationals in 95. And I show up at Champions Day. I'm like 300 pounds now, and I'm training there. And Bob Grushkin's there, and with all his, his guys he works with. And he came up to me, he goes, "You're the first person. You proved me wrong." He goes, so you never know. You can't. Sometimes you just can't tell. Some people work hard. They have good genetics. You just don't see it initially, and you can. It's deceptive. I always tell people, never put limits on yourself. Never say I can't do this or I can't do that. Have a vision in your head of what you want to look like and go after it. But go after it 100%. That means there's no excuses. There's no, I couldn't make it to the gym because I'm sick, or no, I had to go to my relative's house and that's why I couldn't stick to the diet. There's no exceptions. I love when Nick Walker says I never missed a meal in 5 years. That's how I was. And if you want to be the best, that you have to have that mindset.
Also, in Nick Walker's words, bodybuilding is all mental, and it certainly is. Go to Nico Cantemir, a good friend of the show. When you mix the GH powder with the liquid, for how many days can you use it? For example, you mix 10 IU. How many days do you have to use it before it goes bad?
Right. A lot of this came about, back in the day when they had Humatrope and Protropin, they used to say 2 weeks, okay, for it. Then Serostim came out with growth hormone for the AIDS patients. They got a use patent on that. And what they were doing is they were putting 18 IUs in a vial, and they were putting 7 vials in a box. So it was and they were saying it was a week's supply. So no one used 18 IUs a day. So what they would tell these AIDS patients is, use whatever you have to and throw the rest in the garbage. If you don't, let's say you're only using 4 IUs a day, then you throw the rest away because it's no good after that. And then they were putting sterile water in it. So people thought, it's, the water, which is not making it last too long. So people say if you use bacteriostatic water, it'll last long. Now, bacteriostatic water just inhibits the growth of bacteria. But what happens is growth hormone is a very convoluted, long, big protein molecule, and it's twisted in a certain configuration. And when you put it into water, what happens is the water starts getting in between the molecules and starts breaking it apart. So over time, the GH breaks down a little bit. How fast that happens, it probably depends on, how, the temperature it's kept at. You can't freeze GH because that ruins it as well. So you got to keep it in the refrigerator. And once it's mixed, I always keep it in the refrigerator anyway, because I just think it's better in a controlled environment like that. But it usually, like I said, 2 weeks is what they say it usually lasts. But I think it lasts longer than that. Even if you lose 10% of the potency of it, it probably will last a month, I would say, once it's mixed. But 2 weeks is a good, safe estimate. Now, there's a company, called Genentech that made the original Protropin. Now they have a product called, they've had it for a while, it's called liquid Neutropin. And just for historical sense, the original Protropin was actually 192 amino acid sequence. And they found out, well, actually Lilly proved that they were wrong, that the GH sequence wasn't 192 amino acids, it actually was 191 amino acids. So they made a mistake. And so when Protropin, when they redid it, they called it Neutropin, NU, but they meant because the new GH, and it was, they had corrected the sequence. But what they had discovered was that if they mixed the growth hormone into a acidic environment, so an acidic buffer, so the water they called it acid water. It was like there was some hydrochloric acid, very dilute in there. The acidity of the water made the GH molecule contract, and when it contracted, it held itself in a configuration that the water couldn't get inside of it. And they found that the liquid Neutropins, at least they said they were good for 24 months. So they would sell them actually as liquids. They were not powders where you had a mix. And the truth of the matter is they probably lasted 20 years, these things. They were so potent. Because I had forgotten I had some in my refrigerator. And like 10 years later, I found them and I used them and they were still potent. So the liquid Neutropin to me is probably the if you can get a hold of it, is probably the best stuff to use because it never goes bad, because it's in that acidic environment. And some people say, well, can you mix it with acidic water? I don't know it. I don't think you can do it. I don't know the formula. I wouldn't even know how to do that. But the liquid Neutropin seems to be the most stable of all the GHs.
We'll see if we can squeeze in a couple of more here. Let's go to Alexander Ruin. Coach, if I'm on a show cut after a cycle while off everything, and I want to push the last 6 to 8 weeks with some clen before my next cycle, would that work, or would I need another break after I stop clen?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, let me read it again. So if they're on a slow cut after a cycle while off everything, and they want to push the last 6 to 8 weeks with some clen before the next cycle, would that work, or will they need another break after they stop clen?
No, I don't think they need another break.
All right, let's see what else we got here. I'm going to go back to NY Bigger. He asked like 2 or 3 questions per show, but he asked a lot of good ones. So this one is about the Post-Olympia Grand Prix. Do you think, and this is a good question, it's a relevant question because, I know you and Chris Aceto were talking about Samson Dowda and Andrew Jack and, how much they've competed over the course of the last 18 months. Do you think the Post-Olympia Grand Prix competitions of the past provide an opportunity for the athlete and their coach to tweak certain things in the hopes of perfecting the peak for the next year's Olympia? Or were each of those competitions unique preps that can't be applied to a future Olympia? Essentially, would it be a week or two of peak testing what works, what doesn't?
Yeah, in theory, it sounds correct. Like if you're hitting multiple shows, you can try different things. Maybe carb up a little more, maybe use a little more diuretic or a little less diuretic, and see what works. The problem is a lot of these guys, when they get to that post-Olympia, they go after, they're not as strict on their diet, and they start eating extra food. If you ask Lee Priest, he was horrendous on the air. Him and Paul Dillette used to cheat their asses off the whole European tour. And so they never looked as good as they did at the Olympia. So for people who are very disciplined, it can be a really good learning experience about what works for your body and what doesn't. I remember when Kevin Levrone, I think he placed 5th at the '98 Olympia, which is the one Ronnie Coleman, the first one he won. Flex Wheeler was 2nd, Astor was 3rd, and Levrone looked huge at that show. He just didn't dry out enough. I don't know if he didn't use any diuretics or what, but then he went on the European tour after that, and he was beating everyone. He won more shows than anyone. He probably made more money than Ronnie did at the Olympia on that European tour. He won probably 4 or 5 or 6 of the tour shows because he just dried out and he looked better than everyone, and everyone else got worse. So it can definitely be used as an advantage for a person who's disciplined. For people who are not disciplined and like to eat, it could be a disaster. So, it is what you make of it, I guess, We'll
take one more question. People like to know about, obviously now the fact that you're getting back into training, they want to know exactly what it is that you're doing. So this, again, from my NY Bigger, average time you spend in the gym these days. I find that when I'm only working one body part per week, I can be in and out in around 30 minutes. Also, is there a maximum amount of time that you feel people should spend in the gym, i.e. no one should be in the gym over 1 hour, as an example?
Yeah, there's no way. None of my workouts take more than an hour. None of my weight training sessions take more than an hour. They're usually like 35 to 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. Depends. The heavier I go, the more time I take between sets. So when I first was going back to the gym after my shoulder surgery or after my cardiac surgery, the workouts were taking no time at all because I wasn't lifting heavy. Now that I'm lifting heavy, I'm for the first time in a very long time, I'm finding that I'm having to take bigger breaks. Like, because if I'm bench pressing, heavier weights, I can't just go and then do the next set right after, or I'll get nothing out of it. So I'm finding that I'm having to give myself more. Same thing with back. I'm lifting a lot heavier with back, so I have to rest between sets. Sometimes 3 minutes I'll give myself because I want to make sure that I'm maximizing what I'm doing. And so, yeah, but it shouldn't take more than an hour. And I do cardio a few days a week, just out of paranoia for the fact that I had the heart surgery. I don't know. They had me doing cardio right after that surgery. So I sit on a bike and I pedal for 25 minutes, usually maybe 3 days a week. And I watch a movie or something like that. Believe me, there's no strain on my legs whatsoever. I'm just kind of spinning my legs. And so that takes, 25 minutes. So I'm probably in the gym about an hour and 15 minutes. If I wind up talking to people in the gym, it might be a little longer than that. But so I'm probably in the gym scenario for about an hour and a half, but I'm not really working out the whole time that I'm there. But to me, it's like it's kind of like a social release for me because I'm working all day, on RxMuscle and species and whatever else I'm doing, cleaning my snakes. I do snake videos, so it's for me, that's like I go in the morning and I kind of that's my kind of little nirvana in the gym. And then I usually get out of there and sometimes I'll go get something to eat after. And then I come back and I get down to work. So for me, I enjoy it. But if I had to get in and out faster, I probably can do it. So if you have limited time, just maximize it, especially if you're only doing one body part. I actually only train 4 days a week. If I would train 5 days a week and I did one body, because I combine biceps and biceps on chest day, and I combine triceps on back day. So those workouts are a little longer for me. If I didn't do that, I would be in and out of the gym much faster. But I only want to train 4 days a week. I find that I recover better when I do that now. Probably because I'm old. See what happens when you get old? You don't have to train as much. You need those days off. So and that's really, I think that that works for me. You have to find what works for you, and just don't be doing. If you're doing 30 sets and you're in the gym for 2.5 hours, that's way too long for sure.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our show segments or updates. A reminder right now on the channel, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio, After Hours. And then Dave did a full-scale video on insulin usage, its applications for bodybuilding, blood sugar control, maximum nutrient absorption. It's a really, really in-depth video that, again, it answers a lot of the questions you may have on insulin and its applications to bodybuilding. Tomorrow, all new episode of the now Dave Palumbo podcast, I guess formerly known as Iron Rage, featuring Dave, featuring Lee Priest. We have, the rotating cast of Greg Valentino, John Romano, and whoever else we have. But it's a fun, entertaining, about an hour. Good laughs, good stories, a lot of good content. Again, on the Dave Palumbo podcast. Again, subscribe below, hit the notification bell if you like what you're watching. Hit the like button, comment below, and as always, we appreciate all of your support. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.